So over the past couple of days, I have been thinking rather heavily about Attack on Titan, and for good reason. For quite some time now, the idea of Ymir and Eren coexisting within the same power has been rather prevalent, especially with the most recent chapter with Ymir taking more of a visual presence within the story and using the abilities, at least that is what it seems, comes with a flurry of different questions. Is Ymir and Eren separate? Are they both controlling the same power? Is Eren going through Ymir to use the power, or is Ymir going through Eren to use the power? Or are they completely separate from one another? The more I thought about it and how I feel personally that the ending is going to go, especially with Eren, especially with the conclusion and the final panel that we've already seen, it makes me rather curious on who the final hurdle may actually be for the story. Now, realistically, we don't have all too much left. If anything, there's probably 3, maybe 4 chapters. That's not necessarily a lot of time to bring in some massive universal curveballs or story-changing elements that have to be explained and played upon in a more thorough and thought-provoking way. That would take time, and unfortunately we don't have that time, and I don't think Isayama is going down that route. However, I do think he is playing on something that has been in plain sight for the longest of time, and that is Ymir herself. For quite some time now, I've thought that Ymir could very well be the final hurdle, and the only way to stop her would actually be Eren. Now, like I said, this falls more so in line with my personal interpretation of the ending, which is going to be completely different to how you feel Attack on Titan is going to end, and to your own ideas and concepts. I don't think Eren is going to survive. I don't think he's going to be killed, but I do think he's going to reside in that place, the Titan realm or Ymir's realm. This place is a place of power. It's a place of birth and creation, but it's also a place of ends. This has been reiterated time and time again, as Titan shifters that do pass away have been directly connected to this specific place. This is their freedom. This is their paradise. So when you have 2 incredibly powerful individuals that are somewhat projected on the exact same line, but the emotion and the history and the pain and suffering that they both have experienced is so inherently different, who do you think is more justified? Who do you think would be able to move and be nudged more freely within their mindset to potentially think a certain type of way? I can tell you right now, I don't think Ymir can be nudged or moved. I think the mindset that she has is completely justified for not only the history that she has experienced, the amount of pain and suffering and torment that she has gone through when she was alive, but also after death. Her being alone, stuck within this limbo place, birthing these titans and being controlled by royal blood, she has been connected to power that she can't use and shackled to a bloodline that wants to use and abuse her. She is nothing short of a person that has lived a tragic life and is also living a tragic death. In that sense, I don't think any words, actions, or appeal to emotions could even fluctuate any sort of response for her. When Eren freed her, you seen how angry she was, how she wanted to take all of that anger out on the world, and the absolute agony that they put her through. I can't help but feel sorry for her, that everything that Eren is doing right now, she wished she could have had the opportunity to do. Now she's riding along, and now she too can use the power and witness this revenge that she seeks be unfolded in front of her. However, there is a person that can be somewhat appealed to, and that is none other than Eren himself. Now, this somewhat boils down to the idea that I've been talking about for quite some time in terms of Eren being in 2 completely different mindsets at the moment. His adult self, which is his more recent and current version, but also his child self, which is the one that is currently representing him and his mindset and his emotions to conquer and destroy the world. I think personal perspective is going to differ for a lot of people in how you view both adult Eren and child Eren specifically right now. But for me, just to give an example, usually when a character regresses to a childlike state, it is for them to be able to understand and look over the guilt, pain, torment, and anguish that they may be going through within the adult stages. A lot of narratives tend to do this, and regressing to a childlike state allows the childlike ignorance to come through and to latch on to specific things so they don't have to pay attention to anything else, so they don't have to suffer the consequences of those more recent, very depthly and dangerous emotions. What makes this even more concrete for myself is that we've seen the the trials and tribulations that Eren had to go through to push himself to this decision. We seen him pleading and begging and crying to be forgiven, the guilt that he was suffering with. This wasn't just an overnight moment of clarity that made him switch to becoming this genocidal maniac that has been pushed to these limits. This took time. This took every human notation within his body to be shredded away. We seen that with the conversation he had with that child, Ramsey. This was Eren we haven't seen before. Someone so desperate to find different answers. Someone that struggled so much to shed his human self away so he could become the monster that the world has created. I think it's important to point those two out, that this is not a choice that Eren realistically wanted to do. It's the only one that frees his people. And while a lot of people wouldn't agree with it, neither did Eren. Nothing was happening. Nothing was going to change. The only thing that would capture the world and showcase just how serious Eldians are to free themselves from this cycle of hatred is the one monster that Malians created. And Eren was going to uphold that mantle and become this martyr of this sacrifice to show the world just how serious Eldians are. If there was another option for freedom or to coexist, Eren most likely would have taken it. Of course, it would have had to been legitimate and proper and allowed his people to be free and not subjugated against or secretly slaughtered off on the sideline. He wanted them to flourish, to continue on for generations, not to be euthanized in a tunnel vision plan like Zeke's. It's a conflict of interest. Malians have self-recognized that the hatred that they've put onto Eldians has created this monster known as Eren Jaeger. And Eren took those steps very desperately to this point. The biggest question is if Eren and Ymir both coexist within this power, if Eren can somewhat reconnect to his humanity that he shedded because he regressed to his childlike self, does the rumbling stop? Just like a lot of this video is my own interpretation of things and my own perspective, this is my own take on what I feel is going to happen to Eren. I don't think he's going to live, and I don't think he's going to die. I think he's going to be stuck within that place of power with Ymir. And the reason I say this is if Armin and Mikasa can connect to Eren's humanity and bring him back to showcase that the destruction he has caused is enough for the world to change. That some of the most prominent Malian figures, the generals, the soldiers, the civilians, recognize and understand, even through all of this death and destruction, that the fault is on them, that the cycle of hatred has been perpetuated, elevated, and expanded upon because of them, and that they recognize the monster is only here because of the hatred that they have created and sent to Paradise and to Eldians. If you have prominent Malian figures that have been born and raised within this cycle of Malian politics already providing these answers, a future of coexisting is 100% a possibility. If this to some degree can get through to Eren and his humanity, that childlike Eren will disappear and Eren's humanity will come back. But the problem is that even if Eren wanted to stop the rumbling right then and there, he wanted to get rid of all of the abilities and stop the destruction, he may not be able to, because Ymir may still realistically be in control. And if the recent chapter is anything to go off, she can still use the ability extremely well. So she will continue the rumbling, and Eren, Armin, and Mikasa potentially being on the same side at this point will not be able to get through to her. So how do you stop it? The only real conclusion I can somewhat come to is that if Ymir can't be stopped, Eren has to shut everything down. He has to make it so him and Ymir are somewhat the same individual. It sounds super weird when I put it like that, but more so in the sense that if this place of power exists once everything disappears, the only thing that should be able to stop Ymir from continuing or recreating an attack like this within the future would have to be Eren. So realistically, Eren could not leave this place of power anymore, and he may decide to stay in here because he sees that option, to avoid this outcome in the future, to avoid anyone trying to use Titan-like abilities or the curse of Ymir being reborn into the world. He will stay within the paths with Ymir, so nothing like this can ever happen again. And the last moments we potentially see of Eren and Ymir is them underneath the tree that represents Yggdrasil, the world tree. How that connects all the way back to chapter 1 when Eren was underneath that one very specific tree and Mikasa wrapping the scarf around him. You can parallel that very first chapter with Eren and Ymir dying or laying down on the tree and Mikasa wrapping the scarf around him, saying goodbye to him. And the last moments we see of him is Eren crying. within the recent moments now, and within chapter 1, and how these moments have been intertwined since the very beginning. You then get the final panel of the story, but to loosely connect it, I feel that final panel is going to be a reference to Eren connecting to someone within the paths. But it's not him in a physical sense, it's him in a spiritual sense, connected through the paths and overwatching somewhat everything. The only other reason why I feel Eren is going to die on that tree, or at least stay within Ymir's place, and the final moments of him are going to be connected to that tree, is for a long time now, I honestly think Eren is meant to be a reference to Odin within Norse mythology. A very loose variation for it, but Isayama has played upon Norse mythology quite a bit, and he's used it to elevate his story to a different degree, using it as symbolism, using it within text, and referencing different characters, Ymir being a prime example for it. Eren has never really had that type of connection towards him. The only person that I could connect him to theoretically is Odin, and Odin killed himself hanging from the tree, but he done it for a purpose, and there's a lot of different variations for it. But when you look at that in the context of Attack on Titan, Eren sacrificing himself underneath that tree, not hanging himself, but just disconnecting himself from the real world to stay within Ymir's realm, so she can't do anything, because she can't continue with her hatred and revenge, I feel would be a very ironic but beautiful and tragic thing that's rather befitting for Attack on Titan. That the one person that seeked so much freedom is not going to be able to get it. And to be honest, I don't think Eren's seen freedom. I don't think he's seen it for himself, but more so for the people surrounding him. Funny enough, the only time he's ever expressed his own freedom is in a point of self-indulgence, with him as a child ignorant to the death and destruction going on and high and mighty above the clouds. The freedom that Eren seeks is the one where the Eldian people and his friends and the future for them continue forward. I think he's always seen the results and what happens to himself, and he may be perfectly alright with it, knowing that this could potentially create a more progressive world. We've seen both sides and how they feel. Would there still be hatred? Of course. Would revenge still be born out of this catastrophic event? Of course. But taking those steps to a more understanding and progressive future, understanding oneself, their problems, their situations, their own hatred, as well as the enemies, provides a future of reform and change. We have already seen it firsthand with people that you would never expect to think this type of way. People from Mali, people from Paradise. Meshing them two together is going to be a very long and tiring back and forth struggle. But now it's only activated and somewhat even possible because of the steps Eren has taken, because of the things that he has been forced to do, because of the sacrifice he has potentially had to make. So with that being said, that is basically it. I apologize for there being some overwhelming stuff within here. This video is more so very last minute, but I would love to hear your thoughts on the future or fate of Eren, and even more specifically Ymir. Do you think she is going to play a massive role in this? Isayama doesn't really have much time to expand upon her influence and how much she controls, but she could very well be the final hurdle, and the only way to stop her may actually be Eren. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you within the next one. Goodbye.